Welcome back to another episode of the Mulligans and Milkshakes podcast presented by the Crimson Crossover Podcast Network. I'm your host, Christian Sykes, joined by Matthew Travis and Charles Branch. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Great week of golf and excited to get into some interesting storylines that came out of it as well.
Yeah, it's just, a normal week of golf for everybody, right? With the PGA and nothing else happened in Valhalla this week.
No, nothing at all. So just for everyone that's listening, this is probably going to be a shorter podcast. We're kind of on a time restriction. So we're gonna just I'm just gonna say this going or starting out. Uh we're gonna recap the NCAA's and Alabama men's golf whenever the national championship is over. One, because our next 2 weeks are kind of a little bit shortened as far as the schedule is concerned, and then also I think it would be good just to have a full-on recap. So this week we're doing PGA golf, and there's quite a bit to talk about. Starting out, Xander Schauffele wins his first major, kind of bites the whole, can't finish on Sunday curse type of thing. Like, in a very tough competition, in a very tough field that you saw Bryson DeChambeau finish second at 20 under, which would have been the record or would have tied the record for the lowest score under par for a major had it not been for Xander shooting a 21 under by getting a boat or a birdie on 18. What were your thoughts on the overall just PGA Tour Valhalla and just how Xander did?
Well, I tweeted about it after the tournament on Sunday. It made for an interesting tournament down the stretch because everyone was so kind of jumbled up. I mean, Morikawa was right there until kind of the back nine on Sunday as well, and Victor Hovland was showing stretches, and it made for an interesting tournament. But me personally, I like the PGA Championship, U.S. Open, and the Open is every year, so I'm leaving it out of there. The PGA Championship and U.S. Open, in my mind, shouldn't be more than like 10 under for the winning score. And this set the record for lowest score to par, like you just mentioned, at 21 under. And Bryson was 20. We might have had a playoff at 20 under had Xander lipped out that putt on 18, which is crazy. And I know everyone's saying the same thing, but to see the PGA Championship leaderboard at 21, they advertise it as the most competitive field in golf because it's all pros. There aren't any amateurs. You can't qualify for it unless you're a PGA playing professional or teaching professional. And then they go out and shoot the record for lowest score to par, so it kind of contradicts itself that way. But I thought it was a great tournament because everyone talked about earlier in the week how caddies thought it was scoreable, and because it was scoreable, they predicted it would be towards 20 under, and they were saying that it should be tightened up on like the Quail Hollow, the Wells Fargo leaderboard where Rory ran away with it and won by 5 strokes. They didn't see that happening, and that was the case. I would have loved to see a playoff because they do aggregate score between 3 holes. But yeah, I mean, I don't see between A, the play, and B, the Scottie Scheffler situation. I don't see the PGA going back to Valhalla anytime soon because like I said, I want to see it at eight under max, 9 under max kind of thing, not 21 under.
It's like the Masters and the PGA flipped this year, both in the scoring, but how guys were making runs and getting hot on the weekend. I remember Masters in the past where somebody gets hot on the back nine, like Shane Lowry did on Saturday, of just making putts from everywhere and shooting the 62 that he did. With that though, I did feel like you got into Sunday and yeah, Colin and Xander, and there were several guys at 13 and 14 and 12. It brought a lot of people into it because you saw some of the scores out there of somebody could go shoot out a 62, a 63. I think Bryson, I should know this, but he shot a 65, 66 on the final round to keep himself in contention. So I thought it was very exciting. I think it brought back the conversation. Not that it's really gone away, but just have the success that Bryson did have in almost forcing a playoff, and we're not seeing him except for the majors on the PGA schedule with everything that he's doing with Liv. We saw John Rahm's, falling apart, both, his game and mentally throwing the club and things like that. So I think with what Bryson has done in the two majors, you're going to continue to get more of a push of they need to figure this thing out and get some of these guys back in signature events or just playing more PGA golf that we're familiar with so that we can have, better fields and more exciting things to watch on Sunday. But I thought it was a great tournament, and it was also a great tournament for Lee Hodges and Justin Thomas. As we talked about, Nick's taking these opportunities to figure things out. But Lee, his best finish, I believe in a major, or at least a best finish in the PGA. While Justin would have liked to have capped it off with a win, finishing top 10 for him has got to feel really good and hopefully continue to give him a lot of momentum as we got two more majors, and then of course the tour championship as well. So it was fun to watch those guys and see if they could make a run, but just the leaderboard as far as Morikawa and Finau and Thigala, like I've really enjoyed watching him play over the past 2 years. I think it's always fun when he's at the top. But it was just a really good leaderboard with good names, and then you had some other guys too in there that you may not, normally recognize. But just yeah, you probably want it to be a little bit more competitive. But I think all in all, it was a good tournament where guys were forced to make shots, still had to make shots, and with the great shot making, yeah, maybe less some tap ins, but they took advantage of it.
And I was to the course's, credit or maybe discredit, like the weather didn't do that course any favors. There was no wind whatsoever, and it rained Thursday and Friday, making the course really soft and allowing the guys to kind of go and attack the holes. And I think that's why it kind of played the way it did. But I have heard some conversations, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. That I wouldn't say that the PGA shouldn't go back to Valhalla. I don't think the PGA Championship should go back to Valhalla.
Yeah.
But I think Valhalla, the golf club, would be a great site for, maybe a signature event or, just another PGA tournament event. I think I think that's where it's being lost. It's not like Valhalla was a terrible golf course and it just wasn't I don't think it was a golf course that was major worthy, if that makes any sense.
I would agree. And the question is, how do you fit another tournament onto the schedule, and what course do you get rid of in order to add Valhalla onto the calendar? And I just don't know what course you do unless you maybe do something where, I don't know, one of the courses is even years Valhalla is odd years or vice versa or something where you're going to one of the two every other year. But I mean, guys, you heard Rory talk about how much he loves going to Charlotte, even though he's from Northern Ireland, and Charlotte is kind of like his home because he's won there now 4 times. And guys get accustomed with these courses, get accustomed with these cities. So the question then becomes, what do you eliminate? And I'm not sure what the answer would be, but I said the same thing. I like the course enough, and I was talking about it. It's a very aesthetically pleasing course to look at. And what about Alejandro Tosti driving green there from 350? I mean, like elements like that make it a fun course to watch, but not, like you said, just not for the PGA Championship and definitely not for the US Open.
Yeah, I was it's maybe going away from your question, but just to talk about the course in general, I got on the USGA Gen app, looking at my handicap. Valhalla was in there, and I was just curious, like, what would my handicap, or what's my handicap for this course? And I couldn't get to the tees that they were playing on, but the farthest tees that they had, I would have been given 27 strokes. So you add that up over 4 rounds, and then you take Xander and Bryson's, 20, 21 under. Those guys would have beaten me by 140 strokes. They would have allowed me to play 3 rounds, and as we got into the fourth, they said, "You know what? Why don't you just take a day off? We'll just give you a 0, but we'll still count our strokes," and still beating me by 60 to 70 strokes. So just to throw that out there, that I've shared with y'all, golf game's improving a little bit, but long way to go. But no, I mean, yeah, the everything kind of came together where the course was gettable and the guys did it. And I think I know we're going to get into Scotty's stuff in a little bit. But Saturday, Ted Scott was not on the bag for him. And he starts off with a double, and then I believe he had a bogey after that as well. And what Doug Bell told us last week, kind of talking about Nick and Hunter and just some of these younger guys, how valuable an experienced caddy is on the bag. And you just wonder if Ted Scott had been on the bag Saturday, does Scotty, find a way to shoot another under par round, and he's in contention as we go into Sunday as well, which again, we're about to get into it as far as what happened to him. But you talk about a guy who is still somewhat living right. That kid, first child, comes over the weekend, hasn't played in 3 weeks, comes out, plays his first hole, and dunks it from the fairway to start with an eagle. It's, even with what happened, I think it's good to be Scottie Scheffler.
Here's the real question. With all the money Scotty's made, why didn't he just pay his Ted Scott's daughter's high school to move the graduation to Monday? He won how much between the Masters and the RBC alone? I mean, he has enough money. Just move it to Monday, and Ted Scott's there. He can, and because I saw something, him getting arrested apparently started to kick in Saturday morning. Apparently, the adrenaline and everything Friday, he just kind of put it to the side and used golf as a means to kind of forget about it. And it kind of settled in with him on Saturday, and then he's with someone he knows, but he's not with his best friend and Ted Scott. And I think that's part of the reason, to go off your point. But why didn't Scotty just pay to have the high school? Why not even try is my question.
See, and you talk about his first hole, he dunks it for an eagle. He gets arrested on Friday, comes out on his first hole and almost dunks it again. I'm just like,
shot his best second round score in a major ever. What, 3 hours after getting arrested? 4 hours after getting arrested?
He only had an hour of warm up, and like for me, like
he was stretching in a jail cell. That has to count.
I don't warm up when I play golf. I don't like to go to the driving range because that's where all my good shots are, and I don't want to lose my good shots on the course. Even though the last time I did play, I did go because I needed to work on my hitting my hybrid, and so I did that, and I actually hit the hybrid really, really well after. So maybe just targeting clubs that I need to work on rather than just going through the entire bag. But no, I mean, he has an hour to warm up. He hits maybe 20 balls on the range. He putts like 2 balls and then goes and tees off, and then just like in the pouring rain after getting arrested, not realizing. And first of all, I want to say this: condolences to the family that lost the person that got hit by I think it was one of the like buses or shuttles. It's unfortunate that the Scotty incident overshadowed that, because I think some people have talked about it. Like that's what it should have been focused on, was the person that tragically lost their life. And instead, it's the world number one getting arrested and taken to jail. And I think the charges that he got are going to get dropped or something like that. But just a whirlwind where, like, you talk about storylines. You already have so many coming into a major with all the live guys coming: Bryson, Brooks, John Rahm, Phil Mickelson, all of these guys coming back in. And then on top of that, you have a not Tiger Woods moment, but Tiger-esque moment where the best golfer in the world gets arrested, for some crazy things. And still goes out and performs. And um, I would love to see the viewership numbers on Friday morning during the like ESPN Plus and then the Sports Center segments that they had, just to see like how many people actually tuned in to like get all the information.
Well, how did you guys find out? And what was your reaction when you found out?
Twitter, Twitter group chat. We have a golf group chat, and you know, just someone sent it, and I was like, "You're kidding, right?" Like,
Well, I was still asleep. I woke up at like 9 o'clock, I think, and I saw it in one of the group chats, and I was like, "That's not true. It's Scottie Scheffler. That didn't happen." And I then another group chat had it, and another group chat had it, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Because my thing is, you give me a million guesses. Scottie's literally the last person I would have told you that that happened to, and I mean, I don't know who my first guess would have been. We can get into that if we want, but I mean, I just could not believe it. And then I turned it on and saw the reporting. That was just insane. What about you, Charles?
Yeah, I found it through Twitter. Waking up probably 7 o'clock, 6:45, whatever it was. I was so as everything kind of started playing out. One, I guess I'll go ahead. We're not geniuses of thinking about this. I think everybody else in the world is thinking it too. Like Scotty not coming out in an orange pullover or an orange golf shirt was just a missed opportunity. I think we can all
If he
agree.
didn't have one Friday, at least get one for Saturday. That would have been hilarious.
Buy one in the Valhalla Country Club, even if it's got the logo on it. You're just supporting. I've got to imagine there is some body cam footage from this incident that we have not seen yet. And so I'm interested to see that come out. Just because like I don't think Scotty, based off of what he said, I don't think Scotty's lying about anything. I don't think he was like overly aggressive of trying to get in or anything like that. I also want to know that Scotty did say, I was being waved in by somebody or somebody told me to turn this way. And then whoever this officer was, Officer Gillis or whatever, didn't want him to go that way and lost himself in the car and dragged him for about 10 yards. Where is this officer who told him it's okay to go in to step up and say, you know what, like I was the one waving him in. That's my fault. Like at least have when they take him to the car and put him in, like where's the cooler heads that prevail to say, look, I was the one who was waving him in. This is who he is. He's clearly just trying to go play in a golf tournament that everybody wants him to go play. Let's let him go. Now, I understand from the officer standpoint, like your adrenaline was probably high for all those officers anyway, with what Christian just talked about Mr. Mills and him passing away and getting hit by a shuttle or a bus. So you're raw. I have to imagine you're already amped up, and anything that you vehicle wise that isn't going the way you think it does, while we can all agree it was probably overzealous police work, like I can kind of understand a little bit of how you're amped up and then you get in a situation that you just overreact and then it just gets worse and worse and worse because it is the number one golfer. It is a guy that everybody wants to see. It's a guy that's competing for the PGA. It's not just he didn't play well Thursday. He was very much, of course, on the leaderboard in contention, competing with it. So some of that is I can look at and say, I agree with what everybody's probably saying is like, this is ridiculous from the Louisville, police department. We obviously know they don't have a great record as it is with certain incidents. But I can also like take a step back. I feel like I can take a step back and say, you know what? Emotions were high even before Scotty got there. And this just kind of amplified it a little bit more. As Christian, I think you said charges are going to get dropped. So it's probably just going to go away. But as me, the just like person who wants to see how all this really played out, I feel like there's a lot more to the story, probably from both sides, that would help put the pieces of the puzzle together and vindicate Scotty, but also maybe vindicate some of the police actions as well.
So what I've seen, I'm not sure the charges are getting dropped because what I saw was, so we're recording this on Wednesday. He was supposed to get arraigned on Tuesday, yesterday. Monday, they got his arraignment pushed back to June 3rd. He's playing in the Charles Schwab this week. We'll get to that in a minute. So they got it pushed back to June 3rd. And I saw something that apparently they're having a press conference tomorrow. So that could mean one of a million things. It could mean they're dropping the charges and they're just announcing it, or it could also mean that they have video of something and that's when the video gets brought to light. But I also saw that he either wasn't the Officer Gillis, he either wasn't wearing a body cam or it wasn't on, one of the two. So my other question is, he was in a tour courtesy car. So for them to say that they didn't know who he was, he's in a tour courtesy car. He's at the entrance. I just feel like the whole situation could have been so avoidable, and it'll be no time before all these courtesy cars are equipped with dash cams. So if anything does happen like this in the future, there's at least one video proof of, hey, go this way. So it's not just Scottie's word versus the Louisiana Metro Police Department or whatever they're called. I just think it's insane. Like, the way we've talked about Scottie in the past, how he was going to leave the Masters for the birth of his kid, and like all these other stories of how great of a person he is. I tend to side with him on the fact of he was told one, he was trying to follow the rules. I can't imagine if he just blatantly disobeyed the Louisville Police Department like it's being conveyed.
Well, I feel like in his press conference after his second round, he talked a lot about it being a misunderstanding, but he also owned his part in it, where he could own his part in the misunderstanding. It wasn't just like, yeah, this happened and I was trying to do the right thing, and they were overzealous, and next thing you know, I'm in the back of the police car. Like, when we talk about who Scottie is, Scottie's stepping up and trying to take whatever ownership he could of how he may have affected this situation. Like, that's Scottie Scheffler. That's what he believes. That's how he carries himself. So I wasn't surprised by that part at all at the end of the day when he got up there and started talking about it.
Yeah, and just a couple of things. One, I showed you guys the police report that got deleted from Twitter. That in the police report, it shows that it's a PGA player's car. Like, that's the identification. And thinking of it, they probably identified that after the fact. As far as like they went and got all the tag information and everything. But I have a question, and it's a tinfoil hat question. Some people have been in, Charles, I know you can't really talk about this, but or like you can't really talk about like sports betting, but some people have suggested
Going down a rabbit hole here.
that the cop potentially had money on Scottie to win the tournament, or to not win the tournament, maybe like another player or something, and that they identified Scottie Scheffler and decided that they were going to try to arrest him to prevent him from playing in the tournament.
I've seen that. I mean, that if true, that would just be it would change the craziest story, I'd probably say, of the year in the sports world, to the craziest story maybe ever in the sports world. A golfer getting arrested because a police officer had a bet against, that would just be insane. But I mean, there were a ton of the funniest thing was the $80 in damage to his pants. And they actually put that in the police report. But I mean, I hope the officer is okay, but why? And I don't know a whole lot about the whole situation, but why did he just fling himself on Scottie's car? Like, what does that accomplish? And he tried to reach in and grab Scottie out. Like, what? Why wouldn't he just call for backup further down the road to try and stop him instead of flinging himself on the car? Like, and that's the felony charge. It's what's it called? What's it? Battery or what?
Assault on a police officer.
Assault on a police officer. And that's where it came from. I felt like that charge in particular was so avoidable. I've thought about it a lot, and I can't bring myself to a reason why he would fling himself onto a moving car thinking, oh, this'll help, this'll stop him.
My only thought, I've never been to police academy, never done any police training, but that, again, going back to what had happened earlier with Mr. Mills and getting hit, maybe that's what their training is. That you're right. It probably doesn't stop them, but if he's on the car in front of, Scottie's viewpoint, yeah, it could be maybe even more dangerous if that driver can't see where they're going and they just accelerate. I don't know. I'm, I'm not trying to, I'm definitely not trying to say like the Louisville Police Department did everything right and all that, but there's just part of this that I feel like I can try to take a little bit of step back and just know like 6 o'clock in the morning, I think 6 o'clock Eastern time in the morning.
Yeah.
It's raining. You've already had a tragic accident. Emotions are high. You're trying to protect people. It's a massive event, of course. But again, I would still sit here and say, yes, there's a lot of that was overzealous, and it just kind of got exasperated even further when you still take him to jail and book him and all this, and not somebody doesn't step back and say, all right, this is who we have in the car. This is the type of car that he was driving. Like, he's supposed to be here. Let's figure this out instead of having to take him all the way to jail, book him, and put a report together.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Christian, I'll start with you. Does this change at all maybe how you view Scottie?
No. My my only one thing that I do want to mention with this whole thing is the cops were wearing those like big like yellow jacket, like rain jackets.
Looked like security.
Yeah, if you've been to a golf tournament that's been raining, or in general, that's what the security team wears. Like, or that's what whoever the hospitality people are that are checking cars and things. So the odds that, and I think Scottie even said this, that he didn't even know that that was a cop that was trying to stop him, that he thought that it was a security person. And I think the assumption for Scottie, I'm just thinking like if I was driving the car in his head, with that pass or the players thing that he has on the car, I think his thought process was, hey, I got told a mile back that players are allowed to go through. I have this pass on my car, so they're going to try to stop me. But as they're trying to say, hold on, stop, 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 they see the pass and they'll let me go through because they know the people that are working there understand that that's a player's car. Maybe not the police understand that, but like the security and the hospitality people know that. And so in Scottie's head, like I'm thinking, like that's what I would do. I would just keep, I would try to turn in because like I'm 10 yards into the turn in, they'll see my pass and I'll just keep going. As far as does it change the way I view Scottie? No. Someone did make another good point, which is this might be one of the final straw to where players aren't driving themselves to tournaments anymore.
That's what I was wondering. Why do players drive? I'm sure there's an answer, but and it probably just comes down to they need more volunteers, or they can't trust volunteers to drive players, or they don't have the money because they're adding it all to signature events and whatever. But why don't they have drivers for the golfers? I mean, that just makes no sense to me.
My guess is there's probably some additional liability coverage or issues or costs that go into that. That would be my guess.
But I've thought that forever because, I mean, if, like Christian said, if you go to a tournament, you've seen the player parking lot and you've seen this, that, and you see players getting out of their car. It's just crazy to me that they don't have drivers to avoid something like this. And I mean, this would be a story no matter if it was, I don't know, one of the playing professionals or if it was the number one golfer in the world. But the fact that it was the number one golfer in the world is just crazy. And the fact that he made his tee time is just insane.
I think to answer your question, does this change my view of Scottie Scheffler? It just reinforces what he presents himself to everybody, in my opinion, because from the video that I saw from the whoever the
Jeff
media,
Darlington.
thank you, Jeff Darlington. Jeff's the one talking to police officers, guys, what are we doing here? And from what I've seen, and I have not gone back and replayed it, multiple times to analyze everything, but I don't think at any point Scottie Scheffler is arguing, yelling, pulling an Andy Kennedy, guys, you're making a huge mistake, and this is going to be an international story. He just kind of accepts it and moves on and doesn't create a fuss about it during that time. And I think that's just kind of how Scottie carries himself, both on and off the courts, on and off the course. So to your question of how it changes my view, it just reinforces that he lives what he believes, basically.
It was
Well,
funny. I don't know if you guys podcast, pardon my take. Xander Schauffele was on. He said there's a group chat and they were automatically messing with him, and they changed the group chat profile picture to Scottie's mugshot. And the fact that there were people walking around Valhalla on Friday, hours after he was arrested, already with T-shirts with his mugshots, was hilarious. And his now son is gonna grow up with seeing his dad's mugshot everywhere, which was probably Scottie's first thought when he was getting the mugshot taken. But what just a wild situation. I still haven't wrapped my head around the fact that Scottie Scheffler, of all people, just got arrested.
It created a wild day on the Twitter/X app because you had that in the morning, and then you had the EA Sports college football release video. And then, of course, you've got all the other play that's going on in the tournament and everything else going on. It was a banner day for that social media company.
well, and I'll say this. Scottie mentioned in his post round press conference where, he's like, I never once tried to say, do you know who I am? Or like, try to pull the, I guess, celebrity card that does exist where, guys will be like, hey, I'm, a football player for the University of Alabama, or, I'm a professional PGA golfer, or, something like that to try to get out of charges. Scottie just kept his head down, did what police officers said, didn't try to make a fuss, didn't try to make a scene, and just, I think all he said was to Jeff Darlington was, can you help me? And that was it.
And here's the thing: if that's like the one instance where the "Do you know where I am" card would be played in a respective, well manner, because he's literally trying to get into the golf. I texted in our group chat when it happened. This is the most Scottie Scheffler way to get arrested. He was on it. He was trying to get into a golf course to make his tee time, and he got arrested. Like, that is the one way if Scottie Scheffler were to ever get arrested. That is how I would imagine it would happen.
Also,
But
question for you guys. Why is he getting to the course at 6 a.m. when his tee time's at 9:30? Three
he
and a
said
half.
he said he was going to work out.
Okay. I was about to say 3.5 hours before a tee time like that. Like, what are you doing for that time?
And what's crazy to me is I don't know how they work out on the days they play, because I try to play like 2 or 3 times a week. My chest, like when I do, I don't work, kind of going off a rabbit hole, but when I work out in like chest and I bench and all that stuff, I cannot swing a golf club. And like that's why typically I'll do chest on Monday to avoid that, because I play Wednesday, but it doesn't mean as much as Saturday, Sunday. So I try to get that out of the way. It's crazy. I've known forever that they do it, but it's crazy to me that they lift hours before they go out and play, because I mean, I guess when you do it long enough, you're not getting sore and you're just used to it. But it's crazy to me that they lift on days that they play and are days that they're playing in a major of all the things.
Well, outside of the craziness that was the golf in and of itself, there's some craziness on the podcast that happened. So last week, we do our fantasy pick 'em, and just so for people that are aware, we kind of we're messing with the format a little bit, so we changed it. So now there's an Alabama round, and then there's 5 other rounds for golfers, but we're dropping one similar to how you would drop a golf score when you're doing like team tournaments for the NCAA. Dropping the lowest one, so you keep 5. It also helps with or you keep 4, it also helps with, people dropping out of tournaments and things like that. We tied this week in fantasy.
Not
Not,
two of us.
not 2. All 3 of us got the same exact score in a multitude of different ways too. Like it wasn't
I
like,
I would love to know what the odds for that would have been that all 3 of us got the same exact score. I mean, I'll rattle it off. So Christian, he got double because of Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas got 8th, so he got 10 points, doubled into 20 plus the 10 for a major. So he got him 30. And his only other score was Xander Schauffele, who won. So that's 35 for the 25 plus the 10. So he got 65. Charles gets 5 for Lee Hodges, doubled into 10 because he got 12th plus the 10. So that's 20 for Lee Hodges. Scottie Scheffler, after getting arrested, goes and finishes at tied for 8th after a great Saturday. Well, I want to mention something really quick after, but Scottie Scheffler 8th, so that's 20 points. And then he had Victor Hovland, got 3rd, so he got 65. And then my 65 were Bryson, who was 2nd, Colin Morikawa, who was 4th, and then Rory, who was 12th. So all 3 of us got 65 points. Standings didn't change other than Charles broke 100, I broke 200, and Christian got closer to 200. What would the odds for that have been?
Look, as I texted you on Friday, I was just happy to know that at that point I'd pretty much secured I was going to get through 100 and not back. So,
You didn't get negative this week.
yeah,
No.
Charles was like doing the calculations. He's like, oh, if this person doesn't bogey, then I don't get negative points this week. I was like, wow.
I'm convinced Charles wasn't watching for the golf. He was watching just to make sure he broke 100.
Oh, I needed Sepp Straka to make the cut. And I would have secured that I wouldn't have lost anybody or lost any points.
And I mentioned it really quickly there. Going back to Ted Scott missing Saturday, that was Scottie's first round over par since August of last year. It broke a 41 round streak. So does Ted Scott return and say, I need a 5% raise?
I bet you Scotty's already given him a very generous amount of money relative to others. Caddy pay. He's not like a Kuchar, who I don't think really pays him
$150 in Mexico. Yeah. That was crazy. Yeah. But I mean, that just talking about that streak, that is insane. 41 consecutive. I mean, you saw John Rahm this week. You saw Dustin Johnson this week. You saw a lot of these live guys, and really just everyone as a whole. Everyone has a bad round at some point. Scottie hasn't had a bad round since August. And for him, a bad round is even par.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of bad rounds, real quick, because we talked about it in our group chat a little bit. I want to get y'all's opinion on just Tiger Woods and the coverage that he gets.
That's a good segue. Bad round.
Yeah, well, we could probably talk about more with coverage because as we meant, Lee Hodges has finished his 12th, and you would have thought he wasn't even playing, this weekend with the limited coverage that we saw.
Robert McIntyre was top 5 the entire week, and I saw maybe 2 shots of his until Sunday. And like you were getting into, I mentioned on Twitter, we saw every single Tiger shot.
And a decade ago, when Tiger was really struggling, kind of like he is now, I was frustrated that we were having to sit here and suffer through all of his shots that just he wasn't even really involved in the tournament. Maybe it's because he had the run at the Masters in 2019 and had played well in 2018. He had the car accident and he continues to try to make a comeback. And because now it is so limited when he does play, I've kind of transitioned to just, as long as it's not just Tiger and 2 or 3 other guys, especially in the first or second round, if you can get it around to a dozen, however many guys you can, and it's not just those, I'm fine with it because I feel like there's only a limited amount of special Tiger moments, even if he's not really in the tournament, but Tiger shots out there that we're really going to get to experience the rest of his career.
Listen, I get it. To most, he's the greatest golfer of all time. It's him or Jack Nicklaus, one or two either way. Most would probably say Tiger. I get that, and he's still playing golf, so people want to see Tiger Woods. There are people who only watch golf because of Tiger Woods, but they have ESPN Plus has the featured groups that you can watch literally just Tiger. Every time Tiger plays, he is one of the featured groups. If you want to watch Tiger, you can watch every single shot Tiger takes, every single step Tiger takes when he reaches into his bag to grab a ball because he hit it into the water for the fourth time on the same hole. You can watch him grab his fourth ball. But there was one instance on, I want to say it was Friday. He was 8 over. He was just off the green. He put it 30 feet past the hole when at the same time Robert McIntyre just made birdie to get into a tie for third. At the same exact time, they didn't mention McIntyre, but we saw Tiger chip it 30 feet past the hole, walk to his ball, putt it, miss a putt, then make that putt. I don't need to see and this might be I'm not a Tiger hater. I'm not the biggest Tiger fan. I don't know what it is, but I've just kind of never been the biggest Tiger fan. I love Tiger because he's good for the game of golf. When Tiger is playing well, that is a ratings magnet. It's when the ratings are highest for anything when he's playing well. But I've never been the biggest Tiger guy, so maybe that's why the conversation got brought up because I was tired of seeing every single shot. I, enough is enough. I don't need to see him. He finished at what, 8 over between 2 days and didn't make. I don't need to see every shot.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that too. Like, like ESPN could make so much money by just saying Tiger's gonna have his own specific
Exclusive, yeah.
broadcast. Yeah, and go do it on ESPN Plus. And I love Tiger. I think, like, I'm not like a diehard Tiger fan, just because of his antics, off the course. Like, I can't bring myself to, you know, be diehard rooting for him. But at the same time, like, tournaments are more fun when he's in them. They're more enjoyable to watch when he's contending. And so I definitely get the allure of him. And I want to see him win because the story is just so good. Like, if he can ever get over the hump and win again, like, that storyline is going to be so good for the game of golf. And like, that's what 2019 the Masters did. Like, he won the Masters. I had people that had never watched golf in their life watching the Masters and then come to me and say, I want to go play golf because of this. Like, this gets me interested in golf. Like, that's why I want him to be competitive in being in the field. But like, I don't, like you said, I don't need to see him. If he's 8 over, show a
Yeah.
shot.
It's one thing if he's on the cut line trying to make it into the cutter. Obviously, if he's in the picture for top 10, top 20, whatever, it might be competing. But he is 9 strokes because it ended up being 1 under. He was 9 strokes off the cut.
Yeah.
Show the birdie and eagle putts that could potentially get him back in it, and that's really about it.
Him and Michael Block were one of the same this week.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. I know we're probably running out of time. Let's move on to fantasy this week. We have the Charles Schwab, and Scottie Scheffler's in it because it's his hometown. Colonial's his hometown course. That's where he's from. So, he hopefully, fingers crossed, doesn't get into any more traffic incidents. Being at home, and it may be a little bit of a homecoming for him, allowing him to relax. But it's not one of those events that, like, the purse is $9 million. It's not one of the events that's going to have the big names. I think Scottie's only playing in it just because, like I said, it's his hometown.
Before we do this, I have one quick trivia question for you. Tommy Fleetwood, obviously regarded as one of the best players on tour because he is. How many PGA Tour wins does he have? 136 career starts. How many wins do you think he's had?
8.
He doesn't have a major. We know that.
8.
2.
Doesn't have a single one.
What?
There was that
He
one
is
year he was
he
like top 3 or top 5 in money, but didn't win a single event. That might have been
he
3.
has never won on the PGA Tour. He has 136 career starts. He has 5 runner-ups, 5 third places, 23 top 5s, and 36 top 10s.
He's the
Exactly.
Lando Norris of PGA golf.
Hey, Lando got to win.
He
Watch your
did.
mouth. Watch your mouth.
He may be
But
the new Adam Scott.
well, well, Adam Scott won a Masters, but
Took
I
him a while.
like uh, if I didn't know that Charles Christian, that would have probably been my guess, 6 to 8 or so. But he doesn't have a single one, so that kind of segues into my next question: Who now that Xander's won, who's the best golfer on tour that hasn't won a major yet? I have a couple names in my head, but I wanted you guys to think.
Tagala is going to be up there, but he's young. I
Yeah,
don't know
he's
if he
not
really
there. He's
counts.
not there yet.
I don't think
Yeah.
he counts, but like
He's
he's going to
what,
get there.
24?
Yeah, yeah. But I could be wrong, but has Tony Finau won a
No.
major? I think
Nope. That's
Finau.
one of my names. Obviously Ricky, but Ricky's kind of past one of being the
Yeah.
best players. He was that guy that hadn't won a major 4 years ago, 5 years ago, but now other than the US Open, which I really thought he was going to win last year, he's not really competing anymore. There was that year he finished second in literally all 4 majors. I think that was 2014. I think that was the last time the US Open was at Pinehurst. So
Yeah.
that I think that was 2014. But the names I came up with, Patrick Cantley, I think he's right in that mix. Tony Finau, you don't like Cantley, or you wouldn't put him in that
I don't like
conversation.
Cantley. I hate Patrick Cantley.
Fair enough. So I think Max Homa's entering that conversation. Tony Finau definitely, but I mean, there's a long list of guys that just haven't gotten over the hump, which is crazy. What about you, Charles? Who are some of the
The,
names that kind of
the
come to
two
mind?
the two that I would have said were Tony Finau and Ricky Fowler. And Ricky Fowler, I agree, is maybe not the profile that he was, but I remember when he was playing well and wasn't winning or closing out those majors, all I could think about was Lee Westwood and how Lee Westwood was so good and so close, but never got over the major hump. And because of that period where Ricky was, and just the brand that Ricky was, too, that's why to me, Ricky Fowler is still the best golfer that has not won a major. I do
I would
think,
agree. I still have my orange flat bill.
Tony has played obviously a lot I feel like to me, Tony's come on the scene the past 5, 6 years, maybe. Um, and he's a lot older than what I thought he was when he started coming onto the scene too. Uh, I think it would be, yeah, I think those are the two guys that I would say, just because of age. Um, but then when you think about, there is definitely better golfers than them at this time or playing better, but they're younger guys. So I wouldn't necessarily put them into that category of, man, when is this guy going to win a major? Or like he should have won a major already, I guess is the category.
Yeah, and even though like we just talked about, he hasn't won a PGA Tour event ever. I still think. I mean, he was going to be my alternate last week. I still would put Tommy Fleetwood in that conversation because it feels like he's consistently in near the top of the leaderboard and can compete any given week at any tournament. But it isn't that great. Just never won a PGA. He's won overseas and he's won on the European Tour and the DP World Tour and all these other tours, but he's never won on the PGA, and that's crazy because there are guys that you've never heard of that have won just a PGA Tour event.
So I'm gonna give a Tony Finau comparison, and I'll let y'all rip it apart. I was very excited to see him and be up and close and personal to him at the regions. KJ Choi and Tony Finau now are my KJ was always kind of hanging around, didn't have didn't I don't know if KJ ever finished runner up, but he was just always there on Sunday trying to make a move. that, you know, 1 or 2, 3 holes go differently, catches momentum, maybe he pulls off a major. That's kind of where I think Tony is. Obviously, he was in the last group with Tiger in 2019, but other than that, you know, I can't really. And you know, last week he was obviously in it too. But other than that, I can't think of a lot of Tony Finau close finishes to win a major. He's there, he's on the leaderboard, but I don't remember a whole lot as far as like, man, Tony Finau should have really won this tournament, or he was really close to winning this tournament.
I have another question for you guys. So, first of all, what was Christian, starting with you? What was your kind of perception of Bryson when just before he left for Live, when he was kind of the corny, building up his body to be on the long drive tour? What did you think of Bryson, and how, if at all, has that kind of flipped?
Yeah, I love this question because I actually was talking about it with people. So Bryson, when he left, first of all, Bryson going to Live was the most obvious thing like ever. Like it was obvious. Like
you knew Bryson, you probably figured Brooks, and
Yeah.
you probably figured Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, like that was pretty clear that was gonna happen. And Phil was another one that was, I think, that people could have probably seen coming. But when he left, I really didn't like him, mainly because he was just so cocky and, you know, came off very I guess disingenuous. But you know, I guess what's the saying, like distance makes the heart grow fonder. I think that's what it is. I think that's the saying. Not seeing him, and I do watch a lot of YouTube golf, so like seeing his YouTube content and seeing like kind of the different stuff that he does and his personality when he's not in the like locked in, you know, game mode golf and just having fun. Also him growing up and maturing a little bit. You know, I was rooting for him on Sunday. Him and Xander, I would have been happy with either of them winning.
I would have loved a playoff.
But another thing I want to mention is there was a video that came out where he was walking and was trying to give a kid a ball. And first of all, if you're an adult and you do this for a kid, you are just the most scumbag, scum of the earth person. When a player, a professional, like even if I get like, I've never caught one, but if I ever caught a baseball, you know, like a home run ball, like I'm gonna turn and find a kid and give the ball to it. Like I'll say, oh, I caught the ball, but like go give it to a kid, because like that's gonna mean more for that kid, that child, than it's ever gonna mean for me. And so Bryson goes and tries to throw a ball to a kid, and a grown man grabs the ball from the kid's hand and then starts running away. And Bryson turns and stops and says, and like points his club at him. And if there's one
Mind
person
you, he was going to this was mid tournament. He was going to the next hole.
And if there's one person on tour you don't want to mess with, it's probably Bryson, just with how like big he is.
Well, no, now it's Scottie. Let's be clear.
Yeah,
here.
that's
Scottie
true.
Scheffler.
That's true. And sat there and made the guy come back and give the kid the ball. And like that's the kind of stuff that like you just never saw Bryson do. And someone made a joke. They were like, "Oh, it's because he's not wearing the silly hat anymore, is why Bryson's is now enjoyable." So, no, I don't have a disdain for him like I used to. It's golf is a lot more fun when he's involved. And the kind of the thought process and the how he's doing things is an intriguing thing for me to kind of see and listen to.
Same question for you, Charles.
Changing the hats was a good idea by him. To say that guy, whoever the older guy was who caught the ball ran away, is, to put it lightly. It's like he was running a 40-yard dash for the NFL Combine. He was out of there so fast. So
what would you have done if a grown man, you're at the Regions with your sons, grown man grabs a ball that was thrown by Walk with Pride to thrown by Dickie Pride to one of your kids and a grown man intercepted it, what would you have done in that situation?
I would not have made a scene about it. Like I wouldn't have run after the guy or anything like that. But that was also coming off the Pro-Am on Wednesday. And I didn't really talk about this, just the older guys that were out there with bags of things for DeBoer and Smart and Saban autograph. And Smart was caught on, video, phone, whatever it was, talking about where he signed an autograph for a kid and he was signing an autograph for another guy. And he said, that autograph's going over that kid's bed. Yours is about to go on eBay. Like there's just some of this stuff that I don't want to be judgmental, but these grown men begging for autographs from Nick Saban and Kalen DeBoer, and it's not. I don't feel like they're begging for autographs to go get it for their son or grandson or anything like that. And I feel that way because they are literally standing there with 3 or 4 of the same picture or 3 or 4 Alabama or Georgia football. Like it's a money making opportunity for them, and I think that's unfortunate. As I get older, just because like the Pro-Am is set up, I think, obviously for guys to watch these celebrities play, but also they're they want to give back and they want to inspire the younger kids out there too and create that moment like Bryson was trying to create for this, young fan out there. So I would not have made it big. I mean, look, when I think it was this is embarrassing. I should have his name in my brain. But when we were at the Regions and I had Harvey and Wilson, and we're staying on the back of 17, and Scott McCarron's caddy comes over and rolls 2 balls to Harvey and Wilson. I wasn't even paying attention, so when I turned around and saw a ball rolling on the ground, I picked it up and tried to hand it back to the caddy just because I thought he had accidentally dropped it. And he was like, no, that's for them. So I was very appreciative of that. If some older gentleman had picked it up, like, yes, I wish, kind of like how Bryson did, or that caddy, no, this is for them. But some of those things, like, I just not willing to get in fight over, I guess. To your question just about Bryson, yeah, changing the hat for me, makes him seem a lot less pretentious. But I also felt Jim Nance gave him the Phil Mickelson treatment, I felt like. And so just slobbering over Bryson, everything he did was fantastic. When Bryson comes over and shakes Xander's hand after he wins, it was a classy move by Bryson. But Jim Nance, it's like nobody's ever done that before in the history of golf. So as I'm watching that, there's some of this, and I don't dislike Phil, but there's a reason why Phil's nickname is Fig Jam. And that's just, one of those things that now I feel like I got to get through because some of the arrogance that Phil has, Bryson's got some of that same arrogance too with, 67 Masters and just some of the other things that he does as well. But as far as when you look at guys that you want to try and grow the game and the emotions that he showed through the weekend, like that's what I think is the younger golf generation want to see. Doug Bell, I think, was talking about it too, just with Pop Stroke and Top Golf and stuff like that. You want to be a little bit more relaxed. Like the days of the golf clap are gone. It doesn't need to go, wasted management style like it did earlier in the year, but there is a good, in between there that you can have fun and be passionate and get the crowd riled up too. So again, I think it's a guy, Bryson is one of those guys that the more he plays better in these in these major events, and that's the only time we see him, there's going to be continued pressure to get some type of deal done where these live guys can come back and play, because it's only going to grow the game.
Yeah, kind of echoing what you both said. I was watching and just when he first emerged and he was in contention at the Masters when he was still an amateur just coming out of SMU. I remember I wrote it in my note. I think that was the 2016 Masters, if I'm not mistaken. I remember writing it in my notes that Rory was going to win at a certain score and then Bryson was going to be second. I'm still waiting on Rory's win at Augusta, but that's besides the point. But like, we knew he was going to be good because he was competing, and there was the even length clubs and all this other stuff, the mad scientist nickname, and now his 3D printed clubs. He was known as a corny golfer, and he was known as a guy that was just infatuated with hitting the ball further. There's the famous pose of him doing this when he cleared the water and drove the green. And that's kind of who he was before he went to live. And now that he's on live, he has more. And we talked about it with Doug, the YouTube golf, and how he's really taken that on and is doing stuff with Good. He's doing stuff with Bob. He's doing stuff with everybody, and it's creating more fans. But I think he's just becoming a more likable guy, just because whether that's because he went to live and we don't see him, kind of like Christian was saying, or whatever it might be. But do you think maybe he's regretting going to live a little bit? Because I remember on, was it Thursday or was it Friday when he chipped in for Eagle on 18? He said that was the best moment he's had in golf in years, which kind of speaks to what everyone, the unspoken that everybody already knew, which is live isn't prioritizing golf. It's just making money and trying a different format. But that shows that the level of golf isn't as serious. Do you think he's regretting going to live a little bit?
I don't think so. Um,
No?
I think Bryson is smart enough to understand that maybe something that a casual golf fan didn't think about. And I didn't. I mean, I kind of thought about this, but like not like too deep. I think Bryson understands that live was never gonna be a lasting thing, and that eventually, whether it be 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, outside of doing the majors, that he would make his way back onto the PGA Tour. And for him, he's like, why not go get that generational money, the generational wealth, secure that, and be able to go and work on the things that he wants to work on, whether that be, he's designing new golf clubs right now, like that help with like speed. He's doing the speed training, he's doing the YouTube golf, he's, you know, kind of expanding his brand. And there's a lot of stuff that money has allowed him to do. Like he's building, because like I said, I watch his YouTube videos. He's building like a performance golf center for people to come in and like train like he does and do the things that he does. Like there's so much that he's able to do because of the money that he took from live, um that he said it was hard, it was impossible for him to pass it up. I mean, he only has to play 17 events a year, and he's making more money than he ever would have made on PGA Tour. And eventually they're gonna the PGA golfers are gonna find their way back to the PGA. That's just how it's going to be. My thought process with live is that they're probably going to dissolve that and make team events on the PGA Tour, and make the TGL that they have, make those teams team events and have some signature events that turn into match play, similar to like Zurich and things like that. I think that's the solution. And so for him, I don't think he regrets it. But I do think that the lack of crowds and the lack of maybe competitiveness kind of hampers these guys a little bit. And you're seeing it with John Rahm, and how he's playing.
I think him going there too, and even though Brooks went there as well, that feud that they had, you don't hear about anymore. And I
Yeah,
wouldn't
they
say,
squashed it immediately.
yeah, and I wouldn't say like Brooks Koepka is widely loved like some other golfers out there, but the sense that I got watching that is a lot of people were on Brooks's side or wanted to be on Brooks's side relative to Bryson's side. So the fact that that's not out there anymore and he's not the villain part of that has obviously got to help his brand too.
Yeah, I agree. And the only reason I ask if you guys think maybe he was regretting it is because of that comment. He said that was the most fun he's had playing golf in, I think he said, years. He cited one specific shot or tournament or whatever it was, but it gratifies everything else, everything everybody has said, which is the competition is just not the same. And I think part of him is regretting it solely because he's a competitor. He just talked about how bad he wanted to win, but his time will come, whatever it was, and he only gets 4 shots a year to really compete like this. And I think for that reason alone, maybe he's regretting it a little bit. But Christian, like you said, at some point they'll be back on the tour, so it's not a big deal. He just got what, $175 million, I think, to go to live, and he'll be able to play the same tournaments, and I'd say by 2026 at the latest.
Yeah. Let's get to the fantasy.
One last thing before fantasy, and I'll do this very quick. I just want to give a shout out to Nelly Corda for finally winning another LPGA event, since it seems like it's been forever when the Golf Channel were talking about that she didn't win last week. So Nelly Corda, congrats on winning another LPGA event. It's just been way too long since you won one.
Yeah,
I thought
it's
you were
only-
about to give a shout out to me for shooting a 70 on Saturday.
I should have done that too, but Nelly had such a tough week.
It was
The
such a
previous week,
drought.
finishing third or whatever it was, that I wanted to lift her spirits. She's now won what, 6 of the past 7 events that she's been.
Man, I can't imagine just going a week without winning. Just doesn't exist. Okay,
Right.
so
All right, we'll get into it.
yeah, we gotta, because I think Matthew's
One more
got-
thing. No, I'm
Okay.
kidding.
I'm trying to get you out of here because you got to get back to work. But let's go ahead and do fantasy. So Matthew, I think you have 235 points. I have 195 points, and then Charles has
160.
Yeah. And then what's the order this week?
So it goes Charles, myself, and then Christian. There are 3 Bama golfers this week. We have Robbie Shelton, friend of the program. We have Lee Hodges, and we have who's the other one? Oh, it's
Davis Riley.
Davis Riley. That's right. Yeah, so we have 3, so we all get an Alabama golfer, and then same thing we introduced last week, so have to count the Alabama golfer. Obviously no negative points for the Alabama golfers, and then it's 4 of the best 5 remaining. So
Yeah.
Charles, you are on the clock.
Yeah, I told y'all my strategy as far as having Lee Hodges at the top, and it did work out. Even though I didn't win, we all tied last week. I know you're typing Lee Hodges. I'm not going with Lee Hodges. I'm going with friend of the program, Robbie Shelton, because I saw Kelsey and Riggs are out there at the tournament with him as well. So Riggs was with Kelsey when he won his Korn Ferry tournament last year. I'm thinking, Riggs brings some good boy luck to him. I don't know if Riggs will be on the course like he was at the Korn Ferry course last year, but I'm going friend of the program, Robbie Shelton, to lead our team this week.
I figured you might go Davis just because he's a friend, or sorry, might go with him because he's a friend of the program. I respect the pick, and so that means I will get Lee Hodges.
I got Davis Riley then. I really wanted
you go.
Lee. I was hoping that I was second so I could get Lee, but I guess I was third this week.
Well, you get a felon in Scottie Scheffler.
Yeah,
if you want him.
I was gonna, I'm thinking about who I'm gonna pick here. This is a tough one. I think I got to go with the world number 1, Scottie Scheffler. It's just so difficult it's a difficult pick.
Looks like you thought a lot about that one. And
Yeah.
we won't get into the odds too much. I just want to say one thing. His odds to win this are plus 260, which is insane for a golf tournament. To put that into comparison for those who don't like sports bet or anything, plus 260 is like a I don't know, if the Chiefs next year were playing the I don't know, like a decent team, like I don't know, the Cardinals or something, like a decent team that probably won't win but has a chance. And those are his odds for a golf tournament, which is just ridiculous. But off that, I'll go with Colin Morikawa. Had him on my team last week, have had him on my team a lot this year, and he is doing well for me. So Morikawa.
Yeah, so I'll quick pick these next 2. I'm going to go Jordan Spieth, and then I'm going to go with Tony Finau. Tony Finau, where he be now? He be on Team Branch for this week.
He's a poet and he didn't even know it. So Spieth, Finau. I'll go with Max Homa. Team Max on my team. Spicy meatball.
So you guys are these picks that I'm about to make are about to be crazy, but Rob McIntyre is on the
Ooh,
team.
McNeese boy.
And then Thomas Dintry also on the team.
Thomas Dietrich.
Sorry, Dietrich.
I was looking at Dietrich. I wanted him, and those are the teammates from the Zurich Classic. So you got teammates right there, and Dietrich and McIntyre. Perfect. So I had my eye on Dietrich as well. He played really well. I think he was tied for 4th this week.
4th, yeah.
Yeah. So and McIntyre was tied for 8th. So going with the hot hand.
Well, McIntyre's finished, I think, in the top 10. I think in 6 of his events.
Yeah,
he's
had a good, and he's from Scotland, and he's talked a lot about kind of how the PGA Tour has been an adjustment for him, because it's not like he comes from the DP World Tour, and everyone on the DP World Tour is like really tight and they help each other out, and it's not really the case on the PGA Tour, which he says has been an adjustment. But anyway, like the pick. So there are a couple names I'm looking at. I don't want to give any away in case they get back to me. I will go with. We're gonna go with Tom Kim. Kind of down the odds, but he played decent enough this week. He had some rough moments, but I'll go with Tom Kim.
2 weeks ago, I picked for the Wells Fargo Justin Rose and Harris English, and seems I was a week early on both of them. I'm going to use that same strategy and go back to Sepp Straka and Lucas Glover. Welcome back to Team Branch.
There you go. Sepp Straka and sorry, who's the other one?
Lucas Glover.
Lucas Glover. There you go. One of them's got to work.
Yeah.
So I could go with Harris English. He had a good week. I like Siwoo. There are a couple names. I don't want to give him away because I know it's going to come back to me. And I have a interesting pick if he's there for me in the 6th round. Between a couple names, I was between Sung J M and Siwoo Kim at the wire. I went with Siwoo Kim.
I'm really mad because that was going to be my pick. Siwoo Kim was going to be my pick. Minwoo Lee is going to be mine.
Chef Chipinski. He chipped in 3 times in what was it, Friday, I think.
And then I think I'm sorry about the pronunciation, but Tom Hoagie, is that
yeah, that's right.
That's gonna be my last pick.
So he is there for me. He is a winner this year. He played well this past week. I think he was tied for 8th. Any guesses with who I'm going with? Billy Ho. I'm going with Billy Horschel.
Oh yeah,
kind of down the odds, but he played really well this week. He already was won this season, so we're gonna go with Billy Ho.
I'm going deep. He's like, I think he's kind of a de facto winner. No, he's not a de facto winner. He just got first place money. But I'm going with Christian Bezadenhout.
Okay.
My last pick.
Oh yeah, he took Nick's money.
He took Nick's money. Yeah, I'm going.
That's a name, huh?
That is a name. It's a name that I've seen on a lot of leaderboards this year, and not necessarily the signature events. I do know he made the cut last week, but I'm willing to take a flyer on him and see if he can bring me some points this week.
Spelling bee, Christian. I'm looking at it. I think Charles is looking at it. Take a guess on Bezadenhout. I don't have the origin for you. I apologize.
Beaz. No.
Bez.
Oh, Aiden. So AND.
No A.
HOUZT.
There's no A. It's
LMNOPQRSTUB.
BEZUIDENHOUT.
Yeah, I was so close. It's the same thing.
You share the same first name.
Yeah.
I was considering, there were a couple names. Austin Eckroat had a great week. I was looking at him as a possibility, but so anyway, Charles is Bama golfer, friend of the program, Robbie Shelton, then went with Jordan Spieth, Tony Finau, Sepp Straka, Lucas Glover, and Christian Bezadenhout. I went with Lee Hodges for my Bama golfer, Colin Morikawa, Max Homa, Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim, Billy Horschel, and then Christian Davis Riley for his Alabama golfer, Scottie Scheffler, the Felon, Robert McIntyre, Thomas Dietrich, Min Woo Lee, and Tom Hoagie. And just so you know, Scottie Scheffler's picture will 100% be his mugshot for the graphic.
Who do you like in this one? You always say who you like, which
Well,
roster.
last week I was trying to predict who the poll vote would be, and I was correct. It was between Christian and I. I think just names. I think it might be me this week. It might be Charles because of Jordan Spieth, Tony Finau, and a couple of his were there. But you also have Scottie Scheffler. But I think for a casual golf fan, Scheffler is probably the only name a lot of people would recognize. So I'd probably say I would win the poll vote just because of name recognition. So
Yeah, I'm telling you, my team's out of the box, but I think it's a strong team.
like I said, I was gonna pick Dietrich in the fourth if you didn't pick him. So I like the pick, and McIntyre's been really good lately.
Yeah.
So after you recap, I just want to go ahead and say this, that as we close down the show or the podcast today, I want us each to give their best Scottie Scheffler meme that came out Friday morning.
Oh,
Hear
there's
that?
one and it's not even close. It's Scotty on top of in a golf cart on top of the OJ Bronco running away from the police. That was I don't know who made that, but that was one of not only the funniest meme I saw on Friday, but one of the funniest memes I've seen. That did numbers in the group chats with the ha-has.
Yeah.
Mine is well, it's not like appropriate. Well, okay. So not to get political, but while all of this is going on, there was a tweet from the White House and from Joe Biden about how they're gonna essentially change a certain green product from a schedule 1 drug to a schedule 3 drug. And Joe Biden made a tweet saying that people that like to partake in this certain drug don't deserve to be put in jail. And if you go and look at all of or a large part of the quote tweets, it is, what about a guy that's trying to go to get his tee time on a golf course? And I was just scrolling through that and I was just dying because it is just absolutely hilarious.
What about you, Charles?
You took mine. The golf court, the police cars, OJ scene, and him being in the golf cart too, speeding away. That was very good.
And then they had the prison Mike. He had the from The Office. They had the purple bandana on it. They had the T-shirt with that 2 hours later at the golf course. We could go on and on, I'm sure, for hours about. But what just a crazy. It still hasn't hit me that Scottie Scheffler of all people got it.
Also just want to say this, for those of you that are Alabama fans and that do listen, this past weekend, with the whole Scotty thing, reminded me of our, friend of the program that passed away, Luke Ratliff, who would have had an absolute field day. His birthday, I believe, was yesterday.
Yesterday, Tuesday, yeah.
Being Tuesday. And just shout out Miss Pam and the Ratliffs. Just we're thinking about you. Golf was a passion that we got to be able to partake. Myself and Matthew got to be able to experience with Luke, and we're just thinking about you guys, sending thoughts and prayers and love.
Listen, part of the reason for this podcast was Christian. You and I met through Luke. We went to a Charlotte Knights game. So what was it? Danny Mendick and Tim Anderson.
Hey Mendick.
He was having some fun with Danny Mendick. And but yeah, I mean, that's when Christian and I went to rival high schools and didn't know each other. Obviously Luke was from Wadesboro, just outside Charlotte. Christian and I from pretty much South Charlotte, and yeah, we met through Luke, and yeah, every time his birthday comes up, I of course have to have a Budweiser, as I'm sure you guys do too. But yeah, always thinking about Miss Pam. It's still just Yeah.
Anyway, sorry for to end on a somber note, but I just needed to say that. Especially when you're talking about moments on Twitter. And man, that
Listen, there is a Luke Ratliff tweet for everything.
Yes. All right. Well, with that, let's let Matthew get back to work. And we'll probably have to have the same type of schedule next week. Maybe not on recording on Wednesday, Tuesday night. But with that, the recording will be out tomorrow before the rounds. We'll have all the graphics up and ready to go. Be sure to shop J&J Apparel, our apparel partner. I think yeah, Matthew's wearing the
I
J&J
got it.
Yeah, he's got this. He's finally got the merch. But be sure to shop them. They have a ton of golf gear and just other Alabama gear that you might need. And with that, I think we're good to sign off. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.